It is indeed from Steve McCarron, who's co-founder and strategy director at the planning department. And he's going to talk about make good shit happen, something we all desire to do. Steve, over to you.
Thank you. Right. Well, I'm going to start with a simple question, a rhetorical question. What did you make of 2020? And I'm sure if you ask most people, you probably get some sort of expletive-filled response, something like that. And that's fair enough, really, because actually, collectively, in terms of our generation, it's probably been the most challenging year that we've collectively experienced. So it's fair enough. But it's also dangerous, because when we're surrounded by so much collective pessimism, that's dangerous. Because one, it's contagious, and two, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm going to propose a different sort of mantra for the rest of this year and beyond. And it's the title of this presentation, Make Good Shit Happen. And so why is that important? Pretty simple, really. I'm a firm believer that the key to success is to see the world in a different and more positive way to the people around you. Now, I think that's true in life, and many psychologists have spilt lots of ink on proving the connection between positive thinking and success and happiness. I think that's well proven. But it's also true in business, that the people who have the bravery to see the world in a different, fresher way are the ones that can create real energy for their businesses and really capitalize on it. And I think the Steve Jobs example of when everybody was seeing PCs as being boring little boxes that process lots of data and information, and he framed that in a different sort of positive way as a bicycle of the mind, you can see how that really unlocks energy. It's also true in marketing. I love the way that a lot of the most iconic case studies in marketing actually start with something negative, a constraint or a challenge. So these are some really famous examples of that, where take Marmite, it's got loads of rejectors, it's got low penetration. You take Stella Artois, it's more expensive than the market leader, 30% more expensive. You take Avis, it's lagging behind the market leader by a country mile. Bad, right? Well, no, because these brands saw an opportunity in that and they took it and exploited it. And when you do that, it creates energy. When everyone around you is seeing something in a prosaic, often negative way, and you can find a new framing or perspective on it, it can really unlock energy. And if you succeed in unlocking that energy, you get tailwinds, and those tailwinds push you forward and you create momentum. Really powerful stuff. But most of the time, we don't do this. We fall into the trap of negative, defensive, and conventional thinking. You just have to open newspapers to see this, the amount of negativity. It dominates the headlines. You just have to involve yourself in political discourse to see the politics of fear and negativity. And it's perhaps no surprise that recent data in the UK indicates that as many as 48% of people claim to have suffered from depression at some point in their lives. So it seems as though there's something of a pessimism pandemic which is at large in our society that holds us back and stops us from unlocking that power of really powerful, positive viewing of the world. And it turns out that there's a good behavioral science reason for this. And there's a cognitive trap, which is that Homo sapiens tend to pay more attention to downsides than upsides. And there's good evolutionary reason for this, because that would have been really helpful to our ancestors in proper threatening times where we're confronted by physical threat. Having an alert radar which accentuates the negatives would have served as well. But in modern day, where we don't have those physical threats, it can be a drag. It explains why we get sucked into the negative headlines. It explains why we are prone to that anxiety and slightly depressive state of mind. And it also explains why, when it comes to business and marketing, often when we're confronted by a negative, that holds us back and causes pessimism rather than prompts us to find an opportunity. So what I'm positing in this presentation is that controlling your perspective, and specifically controlling that bias towards defaulting to the negative downside, is the most valuable superpower that you've forgotten that you have. So my call to arms here is to get you to use your control of that default negative and start to emphasize and look for the positive opportunity. And the good news is that the more that you do it, the more that it becomes habitual. It becomes stronger, like a muscle. Use it, it gets triggered, and it gets stronger. But it's hard because you've got to work at it, and you've got to do it continuously, and that will then drive your behavior. Now, I'm going to give you a hack in order to be able to do it. What's the single most important thing that you can do in order to nurture and encourage and turn it into a habit? Well, here's the hack. It's called the good shit principle, and it's super simple. What it means is that when something shitty happens, rather than shrug your shoulders or turn your head, you get interested. And you ask yourself one simple question. How can I turn this shit into something good? So, 2020, the next time someone asks me what I think of 2020, I'll admit it's been pretty shitty. But on the other hand, it's probably been the most interesting year I've ever had the privilege to bear witness to. I've learned so much. I've learned more about human behavior, sociology, the psychology of nations, biomedicine, statistics and science than I have in any other year. So it's been a proper interesting year. So my leaving call to arms to everyone here is that when you're next confronted with a negative or a constraint, don't default to the downside. Find the good and make good shit happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely presentation, and goes along exactly what I was saying at the very start of the day. Let's be positive. Now, okay, this is a question from me. So what's your favourite campaign over the last year that's done what you say we all should be doing, looking on the bright side and turning something bad into something good?
Ooh. Gosh, my favourite campaign that's done that.
Or example for put you in the spot. So what sort of example of a brand that sort of does this sort of thing well, you think? What sort of brand have you seen do this?
I guess the classic brand that I used in my example was a brand like Apple, which prides itself on finding the difference and looking for the difference. I guess I haven't seen much communications that has done this well, because communications at this moment in time has been massively sensitive to how we're all feeling, and so it's been quite muted and hasn't been optimistic. Brands have probably quite rightly shied away from that. I think the best examples are brands that have acted in an entrepreneurial way in order to adapt their products or to work in a way which is helpful to customers and and adapt to different situations. So they're the brands that I really admire. So there's been so much constraint following lockdown, and the brands that have managed to adapt and change to that have been the ones that I really admire. And I think retailers have been absolutely exceptional at that, the way that they have managed to keep stores open, build in new delivery mechanics, open up e-commerce in an accelerated fashion. And that sort of can-do way of going, actually, we've got a problem here, but we've got to reinvent and change in order to do it, has been really impressive.
Definitely lots of examples of that. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much. That was a great inspirational talk. Thank you so much.